Buenos dias, amigos. Baloo, my dog Baloo, and I are here to read part 2 of The Phantom Tollbooth by Norm Juster to you. And if you recall, when we left off, Milo had not been paying attention as he was driving down the road, and he landed in the doldrums. And there he met the Lethargians, and he's in the middle of a conversation with the Lethargians, and they've just outlined their detailed schedule, their very busy schedule during the days. Here we go. As you can see, that leaves almost no time for brooding, lagging, plotting, or procrastinating. And if we stop to think or laugh, we'd never get nothing done. You mean you'd never get anything done, corrected Milo. We don't want to get anything done, snapped another angrily. We want to get nothing done, and we can do that without your help. You see, continued another, in a more conciliatory tone, it's really quite strenuous doing nothing all day. So once a week we take a holiday and go nowhere, which was just where we were going when you came along. Would you care to join us? I might as well, thought Milo. That's where I seem to be going anyway. Tell me, he yawned, for he felt ready for a nap now himself. Does everyone here do nothing? Everyone but that terrible watchdog, said two of them, shuddering in chorus. He's always sniffing around to see that nobody wastes time. A most unpleasant character. Watchdog, said Milo quizzically. The watchdog, shouted another, fainting from fright, for racing down the road, barking furiously and kicking up a great cloud of dust, was the very dog of whom they had been speaking. Run! Wake up! Run! Here he comes! The watchdog! Great shouts filled the air as the Lethargians scattered in all directions and soon disappeared entirely. Exclaimed the watchdog as he dashed up to the car, loudly puffing and panting. Milo's eyes opened wide, for there in front of him was a large dog with a perfectly normal head, 4 feet and a tail, and the body of a loudly ticking alarm clock. What are you doing here? Growled the watchdog. Just killing time, replied Milo apologetically. You see, killing time, roared the dog so furiously that his alarm went off. It's bad enough wasting time without killing it, and he shuddered at the thought. Why are you in the doldrums anyway? Don't you have anywhere to go? I was on my way to Dictionopolis when I got stuck here, exclaimed Milo. Can you help me? Help you? You must help yourself, the dog replied, carefully winding himself with his left hind leg. I suppose you know why you got stuck. I guess I just wasn't thinking, said Milo. Precisely, shouted the dog as his alarm went off again. Now you know what you must do. I'm afraid I don't, admitted Milo, feeling quite stupid. Well, continued the watchdog impatiently, since you got here by not thinking, it seems reasonable to expect that in order to get out, you must start thinking. With that, he hopped into the car. Do you mind if I get in? I love automobile rides. Milo began to think as hard as he could, which was very difficult since he wasn't used to it. He thought of birds that swim and fish that fly. He thought of yesterday's lunch and tomorrow's dinner. He thought of words that began with J and numbers that end in 3. And as he thought, the wheels began to turn. We're moving! We're moving! He shouted happily. Keep thinking, scolded the watchdog. The little car started to go faster and faster as Milo's brain whirled with activity, and down the road they went. a few moments, they were out of the doldrums and back on the main highway. All the colors had returned to their original brightness, and as they raced along the road, Milo continued to think of all sorts of things, of the many detours and wrong turns that were so easy to take, of how fine it was to be moving along, and most of all, of how much could be accomplished with just a little thought. And the dog, his nose in the wind, just sat back, watchfully ticking. Chapter 3, Welcome to Dictionopolis.
You must excuse my gruff conduct,
the watchdog said after they'd been driving for some time.
But you see, it's traditional for watchdogs to be ferocious.
Milo was so relieved at having escaped the doldrums that he assured the dog that he bore him no ill will, and in fact was very grateful for the assistance.
Splendid, shouted the watchdog. I'm very pleased. I'm sure we'll be great friends for the rest of the trip. You may call me Talk.
That's a strange name for a dog who goes tick, 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 tick all day, said Milo. Why don't they call you—
Don't say it,
gasped the dog, and Milo could see a tear well up in his eye. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, said Milo, not meaning to hurt his feelings.
It's all right,
said the dog, getting a hold of himself.
It's an old story and a sad one, but I can tell it to you now. When my brother was born, the first pup of the family, my parents were overjoyed and immediately named him Tick, in expectation of the sound that they were sure he'd make. On first winding him, they discovered to their horror that instead of going tick, 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 he went tock, 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 tock. They rushed to the Hall of Records to change the name, but it was too late. It had already been officially inscribed, and nothing could be done. When I arrived, they determined not to make the same mistake twice, and since it seemed logical that all their children would make the same sound, they named me Talk. Of course, you know the rest. My brother is named Tick because he goes tock, 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 and I am called Talk because I go tick, 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 and both of us are forever burdened with the wrong names. My parents were so overwrought that they gave up having any more children and devoted their lives to doing good work among the poor and hungry. But how did you become a watchdog? Interjected Milo, hoping to change the subject, as Talk was sobbing quite loudly now. That, he said, rubbing a paw in his eyes, is also traditional. My family have always been watchdogs from father to son, almost since time began.
You see, he continued, beginning to feel better, once there was no time at all, and people found it very inconvenient. They never knew whether they were eating lunch or dinner, and they were always missing trains. So time was invented to help them keep track of the day and get places where they should. When they began to count all the time that was available, what with 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour and 24 hours in a day and 365 days in a year, it seemed as if there was much more than could ever be used. If there's so much of it, it couldn't be very valuable, was the general opinion, and soon it fell into disrepute. People wasted it and gave it away. They were given the job, then we were given the job of seeing that no one wasted time again, he said, sitting up proudly. It's a hard work, but a noble calling, for you see. And now he was standing on the seat, one foot on the windshield, shouting with his arms outstretched. It is our most valuable possession, more precious than diamonds. It marches on. It and tide wait for no man, and... At that point in the speech, the car hit a bump in the road, and the watchdog collapsed in a heap on the front seat, and his alarm, again, ringing furiously. You're right, shouted Milo.
Umph,
grunted Talk.
Sorry to get carried away, but I think you get the point.
As they drove along, Talk continued to explain the importance of time, quoting the old philosophers and poets and illustrating each point with gestures that brought him perilously close to tumbling headlong from the speeding automobile. Before long, they saw in the distance the towers and flags of Dictionopolis sparkling in the sunshine, and in a few moments they reached the great wall and stood at the gateway to the city.
Ha!
Roared the gateman, clearing his throat and snapping smartly to attention. This is Dictionopolis, a happy kingdom, advantageously located in the foothills of confusion and caressed by the gentle breezes from the sea of knowledge. Today, by royal proclamation, is market day. Have you come to buy or sell? I beg your pardon, said Milo. Buy or sell, buy or sell. repeated the gate man impatiently. Which is it? You must have come here for some reason. Well, Milo began. Come now, if you don't have a reason, you must at least have an explanation, or certainly an excuse, interrupted the gate man. Milo shook his head. Very serious, the gate man said, shaking his head also. You can't get in without a reason. He thought for a moment, then continued. Wait a minute. Maybe I have an old one you can use. He took a battered suitcase from the gatehouse and began to rummage busily through it, mumbling to himself, No, this won't do. No, this is fine, he cried triumphantly, holding up a small medallion on a chain. He dusted it off, and engraved on one side were the words, Why not? That's a good reason for almost anything. A bit used, perhaps, but still quite serviceable. And with that, he placed it around Milo's neck, pushed the heavy gate back pushed back the heavy iron gate, bowed low, and motioned them into the city. Sorry about that. Let's try that last paragraph again. Why not? That's a good reason for almost anything. A bit used, perhaps, but still quite serviceable. And with that, he placed it around Milo's neck, pushed back the heavy iron gate, bowed low, and motioned them into the city. I wonder what the market will be like, thought Milo as they drove through the gate. But before there was time for an answer, they had driven into an immense square crowded with long lines of stalls, heaped with merchandise and decorated in gay-colored bunting. Overhead, a large banner proclaimed, Welcome to the Word Market. And from across the square, 5 very thin, tall gentlemen, regally dressed in silks and satins, plumed hats, and buckled shoes, rushed up to the car, stopped it short, mopped 5 brows, caught 5 breaths, unrolled 5 parchments, and began talking in turn. Greetings, salutations, welcome, good afternoon, hello. Milo nodded his head, and they went on reading from their scrolls. By order of Azaz the Unabridged, King of Dictionoplos, Monarch of Letters, Emperor of Phrases, Sentences, and Miscellaneous Figures of Speech, we offer you the hospitality of our kingdom, country, nation, state, commonwealth, realm, empire, palentate, principality. Do all those words mean the same thing? Said Milo. Of course, certainly, precisely, exactly, yes, they replied in order. Well then, said Milo, not understanding why each one said the same thing in a slightly different way, wouldn't it be simpler to just use one? It would certainly make more sense. Nonsense, ridiculous, fantastic, absurd, bosh, they chorused again, and continued. We're not interested in making sense. It's not our job, scolded the first. Besides, explained the second, one word is as good as another, so why not use them all? Then you don't have to choose which one is right, advised the third. Besides, said the fourth, if one is right, then 10 are 10 times as right. Obviously, you don't know who we are, sneered the fifth, and they presented themselves one by one as the Duke of Definition, the Minister of Meaning, the Earl of Essence, the Count of Connotation, and the Undersecretary of Understanding. Milo acknowledged the introduction, and as Talk growled softly, the minister explained, We are the king's advisors, or, in more formal terms, his cabinet. Cabinet, recited the Duke. 1, a small private room or closet, case with drawers, etc., for keeping valuables or displaying curiosities. 2, council room for chief members of state. 3, a body of official advisors to the chief executive of a nation. You see, continued the minister, bowing thankfully to the Duke, Dictionoplis is the place where all the words in the world come from. They're grown right here in our orchards. I didn't really know that words grew on trees, said Milo timidly. Where do you think they grew? Shouted the Earl irritably. A small crowd began to gather to see the little boy who didn't know that letters grew on trees. I didn't know they grew at all, admitted Milo even more timidly. Several people shook their heads sadly. Well, money doesn't grow on trees, does it? Demanded the Count. I've heard not, said Milo. Then something must, why not words? Exclaimed the Undersecretary triumphantly. The crowd cheered his display of logic and continued about its business. To continue, continued the minister impatiently. Once a week by royal proclamation, the word market is held here in the great square, and people come from everywhere to buy the words they need or trade in the words they haven't used. Our job, said the Count, is to see that all the words sold are proper ones, for it wouldn't do to sell someone a word that had no meaning or didn't exist at all. For instance, if you bought a word like gilbdix, where would you use it? It would be difficult, thought Milo, but there were so many words that were difficult, and he knew hardly any of them. But we never choose which ones to use, explained the Earl as they walked toward market stalls. For as long as they mean what they mean to mean, we don't care if they make sense or nonsense. Innocence or magnificence, added the Count. Reticence or common sense, said the Undersecretary. That seems simple enough, said Milo, trying to be polite. Easy as falling off a log, cried the Earl, falling off a log with a loud thump. Must you be so clumsy? Shouted the Duke. All I said was, began the Earl, rubbing his head. We heard you, said the minister angrily, and you'll have to find an expression that's less dangerous. The Earl dusted himself off as the others snickered audibly. You see, cautioned the Count, you must pick your words very carefully and be sure to say just what you intend to say. And now we must leave to make preparations for the royal banquet. You'll be there, of course, said the minister. But before Milo had a chance to say anything, they were rushing off across the square as fast as they had come. Enjoy yourself in the market, shouted back the Undersecretary. Market, recited the Duke, an open space or covered building in which... And that was the last Milo heard as they disappeared into the crowd. I never knew words could be so confusing, Milo said to Talk as he bent down to scratch the dog's ear. Only when you use a lot to say a little, answered Talk. Milo thought this was quite the wisest thing he'd heard all day. Come, he shouted, let's see the market. It looks very exciting. And we will stop there, and on Monday we will read Confusion in the Marketplace. Have a nice afternoon, friends.